Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our September 22nd Town Hall. I'm Tim Terranova, the proud superintendent of the Victor Central School District. And we have a packed agenda for this hour from 6:30 to 7:30. Really glad you could join us on Facebook Live after about, what do we have? I think we're in our second full week of school. There's two major focus areas for tonight. The first is celebrating our students, and I have a group of them with me tonight, as you can see, outstanding young men and women who are going to talk to you a little bit about how things are going at the start of the school year. And we'll do that for about 25 minutes. And then when the students leave, I'm going to go over some more information about the start of the school year, both the positives and the challenges that we're facing. And as usual, I know that many of you will submit questions via Facebook, and I'll try to answer some of them tonight when the students are finished. And then the ones that I'm not able to get to tonight, we will answer over the next couple days. So really glad you're joining us today. And without further ado, I want to introduce our outstanding student guests. They're going to tell you a little bit about themselves. They're all unique and great representation of our over 4,300 students in Victor Central School District. Lewis, I'm going to start with you, my friend. You want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Luis Diaz. I am in 7th grade in Victor Junior High. And
what do you like to do?
Oh, I like to play video games and like meet new people, basically.
It's awesome. And it's your first year in the junior high. Obviously.
Yes, it is.
Came from the intermediate building?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. It's great to join. Great of you to join us, Lewis. Awesome to have you. Aiden. Aiden is the guy who's dressed much better than I am. Good to see you, my friend. How you doing?
Good. My name is Aiden Bachman. I enjoy parkour, diving, like Lewis, video games. I also enjoy being outdoors. So
Aiden's a 7th grader, right?
Yep.
Did you jump all the way to 8th grade already?
No, I'm still.
How come you didn't button the top button, by the way?
No.
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 You're smart doing that. What was that first thing you said? Can you explain to the audience what that thing was?
Parkour is basically just there's a bunch of obstacles and the teachers teach you how to do really cool tricks off of them and stuff, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. And that goes right with diving, I would assume.
Yeah, more or less.
All right, then we have one of our 8th grade leaders, Kelton, one of the greatest names I've heard in a long time. Kelton, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Kelton. I'm in 8th grade red team for the Victor Junior High. I like to play hockey, baseball. I play cello for orchestra, and I'm running for president in 8th grade student council this year.
Yeah, we actually have, I believe we have 3 of you running for different offices. We'll talk about that in a second. We can get to it. Kelton, thanks for joining us today. And great to have you in the 8th grade and going after leadership positions. That's fantastic. And then we have some outstanding high school students here. Let's start with Amber. Amber's a senior, right?
Yes, hi, I'm Amber DeRosa. I'm a senior, and I play soccer and lacrosse. And in my free time, I like to hang out with my friends, and I'm also involved in some clubs like DECA, Key Club, and I think I'm joining CARES Club this year.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Amber. And
Yeah.
Phil is here. Phil, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. My name is Phil Ungwo, and yeah, I'm a senior at the senior high school. And what I like to do, I like playing basketball, and I hope to play basketball in college.
Yeah, and you're great at basketball, but 2 things that resonate about you, Phil, that I've heard is A, you're a great person, and B, tell the audience a few of the courses you're taking this year.
So yes, I'm taking all regular English and social studies courses, and I'm also taking 2 APs, which are AP Chemistry and AP Calculus.
Yes, which are not easy. So you got a full plate. And last but certainly not least, Maddie. Maddie, you're a junior, aren't you?
I'm a senior.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disrespect you like
It's
that.
okay.
I thought you were a junior. I thought we had you back one more year.
No.
All right, tell them a little bit about you, Maddie.
I'm Maddie. I'm a senior. I am the DECA president, co-president, and I run indoor and outdoor track and play the flute in band.
Believe the pentathlon, right?
Yeah.
And not to brag, but you want to tell everybody how you did last year in the pentathlon?
I was ranked 4th in the nation.
Which is incredible. And what are those? I sorry to keep on it. What are the five? Pent means 5, correct? I should know
Yeah.
that. So what are the 5 events that you have to do and compete with all those other kids in?
You do long jump, the shot put, the 100 hurdles, the 800, and high jump.
Holy mackerel. Are you running cross country now?
No, I just train in the fall and then I'll start indoor track in the winter.
Awesome. I didn't miss anybody, did I? What a great group. All right. So how was the start of the year? We're going to be brutally honest here on the virtual town hall. So how's the start of the year been for each of you? Just let us know who wants to start.
I can start.
All right, Amber.
Okay. So it's been great to be back in school full time. Seeing everyone 5 days a week rather than just seeing like half our class. And I can already tell that because of that reason, everyone's happier than they were last year. And it's awesome to see like everyone have full attendance in sports and being in student sections again and feeling that school spirit. And everyone's just, I feel like it's going great so far.
I have to agree. It is considerably better seeing more than just 7 kids a day. It's really nice. I haven't seen some of my friends in a year. So it's nice to see them again. Yeah.
And it wasn't easy, Aiden, right? Because for you and Lewis, because you guys are joining in 8th grade, you had that hybrid model, and now you're joining a new school. How's that been?
Difficult.
Yeah.
Definitely a change.
Lewis, go ahead.
I have to agree with Aiden that the hybrid model was good, but then moving over to a new school in the district, it's been a lot different than last year.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Kelton, what do you think?
Definitely going off of what Lewis said about the hybrid model last year is definitely a lot easier than the new block schedule that we have this year. I'm new to it, even though I'm in 8th grade, because we had our every day was the same amount of classes and we had the same schedule. But this year it's a little bit more difficult keeping up with a different schedule every day.
Because you're not used to that, right?
No, this is my first year doing it.
Because 6th grade, yeah, that's right. Because 6th grade, we went in the hybrid model, or we went virtual in March when you were in 6th.
7th, right?
7th?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but in 6th grade, you went in March, you went completely virtual. 7th grade was last year. And
Right.
now this is the first time you've been back since 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's different, and switching classes.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and either Phil or Maddie, what do you think?
I've enjoyed being back. It's good to do like more hands-on activities in the classroom. And it's easier to like ask questions with your teachers and kind of get your questions answered. And I also think it's a lot easier to like learn and gather information, especially in like the challenging AP classes. It's easier to learn from a teacher when you're in person than like sitting on the computer trying to learn over Zoom.
So this may be an obvious question, Maddie, but why is it easier in person? Because I was noticing some of that too.
I just think it's more engaging, like being around your friends and just having the teacher in person. Like you can input your ideas more and ask more questions. So it kind of just like clarifies information better. And it's just like easier to stay engaged and more entertaining when you're like right in front of the teacher.
Thanks, Maddie. Phil, what do you think? How's the start of the year been?
Yeah, to bounce off from Maddie's ideas, yeah, definitely going back to full is definitely great to be, being in front of the teachers while they're teaching instead of being behind a computer. And so it was a lot harder during hybrid. As you said, with the AP classes, it's definitely harder to learn behind the screen compared to in person. So yeah, I definitely like the change over going back to full. So yeah.
What have been some of the biggest challenges of coming back full time?
I would say getting back into the routine of getting up every day for 5 days a week and going to school for 5 days a week. Just getting back into that routine. The first couple of days, I was a little tired, but the repetition will keep on coming, and we'll get back used to it.
I think another challenge. Oh, sorry.
You go.
I think another challenge is definitely, like, for me, I know keeping the mask on. I'm sure I could speak for a lot of people, and I know I don't like to do it. And but I was just thinking, like, if we were told last year that we could go back full time and all we had to do was wear the mask, I feel like we would be so much happier. And so if that's what we have to do in order to stay in school, then we just have to. I feel like everyone has to deal with it, and it's just being back is just more important than anything else.
Yeah, I think like what Phil said, like getting into the new schedule, and also for upperclassmen that like have jobs and sports practices, I think just getting back into the routine of having homework every night and balancing like working a job and having sports practice, kind of getting back into that routine was a challenge this year. But like Amber said, it's definitely worth it to be back in person.
Are you more tired than you were last year?
A little bit, but it's worth it.
Anybody else want to weigh in on challenges? Elder- Go ahead, Louis.
Because this is my first year in junior high, especially because back in sixth grade and before, it was just the same schedule pretty much every day. So this is especially harder to get used to, especially with classes and everything going on.
Yeah, and are you getting a lot of work right at the beginning? I mean, certainly some of you, especially our seniors, don't have much of a choice when you're in some of the classes you're in where they have to really start fast. But how's the workload been overall?
It's definitely more than it was last year for sure. But honestly, I feel like for me, like being busier is better, and it keeps me like more on task. So I think it kind of helps.
Anybody else want to weigh in on how much work you're getting, how busy you've been?
Definitely a lot more work this year than last year. Starting off a little bit slower, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot more than what we had last year, like Amber said.
What's been the you talked a little bit about masks. I think Amber, you mentioned masks. How that, I mean, that can be a pain in the neck wearing masks all the time. How are you dealing with that? And are there other kind of the COVID things that we're trying to work on that are challenging or that you just have to deal with? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I know lunches last year we had to like stay in the classroom, but this year it's definitely a lot better because we get to actually go to the cafeteria. But one of the challenges is that like some people have to go to the LGI and have to go to the library, so not everyone like can be in the cafeteria, and they have to kind of be socially distanced when we're sitting at the table at lunch. So like some seats that have X's on them, we're not allowed to sit on them. And like people come around and say you have to move, so that could definitely be a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Although personally, I kind of prefer eating in the classroom because, in my personal opinion, the cafeteria can get, how do I say this, hectic.
Where are you eating now? In the classroom or in the cafeteria, Aiden?
I'm eating in the cafeteria, and I was eating in classrooms last year, but
Yeah, so it's definitely more crowded now. What else about masks or anything like that? Phil, how are you doing? How are you dealing with them?
Personally, I don't really mind wearing masks, because the way I think about it, if you keep the mask on, this is all going to go by more quickly, and then we'll get back to normal faster. So whatever I can do, whatever we could do to, speed up the process for COVID to go away, I'll do it. So
Awesome. Maddie, yeah, go ahead, Maddie.
Yeah, I think we've kind of gotten used to wearing the mask. So this year it wasn't as bad. Like last year it was more new, but we've kind of gotten used to it now. But also a good thing this year is that when we're outside, we don't have to wear masks. So like in PE and sports practice, it's nice when you're doing more physical activity that we don't have to wear masks outside this year. So that's definitely a plus of the kind of COVID settling down again this year.
Yeah, I agree. And hopefully, you know, as we deal with the variant that's coming out now and things get better around the transmission of that, we'll get some guidance from the state to relieve ourselves of being able to wear masks every day or having to wear masks every day. But again, that we're really following the state health guidance on that. And I know it's frustrating, but I appreciate everything you and the other students and certainly the adults are doing around that. So think about this year. I mean, for three of you, it's a huge year for all of you, but so we got three of you who are seniors. And luckily, unlike the last two senior classes, right now we're really focused on having as normal a school year as possible. Although they did a great job. 2 years ago, went to virtual in March and didn't get a real typical graduation. Last year's group, of course, did what you did, which was hybrid, but they did have an awesome graduation in Frontier Field. So think about, we got three seniors, we got an 8th grader and 2 7th graders, right? So what are some goals you have specifically for yourselves this year that you really want to try to meet and just get to? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. My goal personally is to just do well in school, get good grades, just do my job, I guess.
That's a good goal. Aiden, now why is that your goal? I know that sounds ridiculous, but I mean, just go ahead and talk a little bit about it.
I value education. I want to go to a good college when I'm older, get good grades. That just becomes that little bit easier.
Yeah. Thank you.
I agree with Aiden a lot. With where I want to be in life later on, I definitely want to keep track of having good grades and having the full curriculum that we could get this year. I want to be a cardiologist when I'm older. So I definitely need to have better grades and need to just keep everything in line for that.
Why do you want to be a cardiologist, Kelton?
It's always been a fascination for me. I've always wanted to study like biology and learn just about the human anatomy.
Awesome. Lewis, what are you looking for, or what are your focus areas or goals for this year?
My focus for this year is just to keep everyone safe, especially because we're going back full time, but still with masks. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not easy all the time, is it?
No, it is not.
All right, let's go to our seniors.
Definitely a goal I have, like Aiden was saying and Lewis, was to do well in school. And like, even though this year's more chill than it, because we're seniors, obviously, we still can't like slack off, because I know like a lot of us, like all of us probably want to go to college, a good college. And I know like for me, I have to keep my grades up if I want to like continue to do well. And I want to be successful in college and kind of get into that college routine. So I'm just going to keep working hard and doing that.
Great, Amber.
Yeah,
And
I
then-
agree with Amber. I think it's like good to work on this year, balancing like all the things we have, like keeping the good grades up. And I also want to qualify for nationals again in DECA, and being the co-president, I want to make DECA like a better environment for new members and help everyone get the same benefit that I got from it in my 4 years in DECA. And then kind of on the athletic side, I want to qualify for states in track and then like commit to a good college. So you kind of have to balance everything. Like Amber said, keep your grades up and the athletic side and extracurriculars to make sure that we can keep growing next year at a good college and secure that.
Yeah, what everyone's been saying, my goals are to keep my grades up throughout the years, because that's what I've been doing ever since I got into the high school. And definitely just I feel like I should work on like my personal, like to get ready for college when I go to college, and definitely work on basketball. You know, I like playing basketball. I want to play basketball on the next level. So I got to get ready to be able to play college next level while balancing academics. So it's a great time to get into a routine now. So yeah.
So you guys have high goals, obviously, all of you, all the way from our 7th graders to our seniors. How do you manage stress and anxiety? I mean, that's a big topic for adolescents. You know, that's out there, especially with COVID. How do you deal with that and make sure that, you know, you have high goals? And, you know, I've always said to people, whether your goals are to go to college or your goals are to go into the military or your goals are to go into the workforce right away, you know, we try to prepare you so that you can compete with people around you in any of those areas and be and have as many opportunities or more in terms of what you want to do in life. And so, but that puts some pressure on people. So how do you deal with that and make sure you don't get, you know, too focused on failure or worry and those types of things?
I think if you definitely balance your time well and you spend time with your friends, you spend time with academics, and you spend time on whatever other outside school like information and stuff you need, you can definitely get all that done. Definitely have a good time, keep your academics good, and keep your grades up.
Like school is very important and like so is sports, but I really think the most important thing is like keeping good relations with like your family and your friends, like maintaining your relationships. So I think like a way for me like to relieve stress is just hanging out with my friends, like taking breaks from studying, and like even though like I'm getting it done, I'm still like managing my time well, and like talking to my family, like coming downstairs and like interacting. So it definitely helps relieve a lot of stress.
To
Anybody else?
to
Go ahead,
bounce
Aiden.
off what Kelton said, to me personally, to be honest, just studying helps relieve stress. I like just focus on what I'm doing at that moment, and it seems to work. So keep doing it.
And all you understand, I know this is going to sound a little strange, that, you know, even if you don't get an A all the time, or you don't have the perfect game or the perfect score in the pentathlon, or you don't, for some reason, become president, you know, that resilience and dealing with frustration and failure is actually pretty important. And so I hope you all understand that, because you're so high achieving, all of you. And do you feel comfortable that you can deal with, you know, not so much, I wouldn't call it failure, but not necessarily, you know, getting everything you want and having to deal with frustration and loss sometimes?
Yeah, the way I look at it is like you can control what you can control. Like you always do your best in a game or like on a test. But if things don't go the way you want them to go, it happens. It's life. So you just kind of have to, it's all about how you react to it and like the attitude you have after. So you just got to keep going, keep showing up, keep working hard, and you'll eventually reach your goals.
Yeah, I agree with Amber. I think it's also important to set smaller goals along the way, like take each day at a time and try to make one step forward towards your goal each time you play a game or academics. Every test you have, just make one step further and you'll get there as you can. And if you do stumble along the way, perseverance is really important, and just keep working hard, and the resilience to be able to get back up is sometimes even more important than reaching your final goal, and it'll only help you get there faster.
Yeah, like what Maddie said.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You gonna say something, Phil?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, as Maddie said, you know, like whenever something goes bad or something goes wrong, you gotta keep your head up and keep a positive mind, because negativity is really contagious. So whenever your mind starts trailing off being negative, it's gonna ultimately result into more negative things. So you have to return it negative into a positive and try to keep on going forward and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of it is just having a positive attitude and trying to drive those negative thoughts out and really staying positive, and being around positive people too, right? You want to have friends and peers that are positive and build one another up. And I think lastly, you want to have empathy for people. You guys know what empathy means? Anybody want to take a shot at explaining empathy?
Empathy is sort of like understanding how someone feels. Like,
Exactly, Aiden. And it's not feeling sorry for somebody either, or pity on people. It's trying to have an understanding of what they're feeling and doing, and even if their perspective is different than yours. And it seems like you really have a good sense of that, all of you. Before I let you go, which you've done a great job, and I know you're really busy people, I typically ask the kids that come on the young adults that come on the show, is there a person in school, whether it's in your current building or one of the earlier, buildings that you were in, earlier grades, is there somebody that really stood out to you that's made a difference for you in your life? And if you want to give them a shout out, now would be the time to do it. Who wants to go?
I think Mr. Slavny in our school, he just always has like a smile on his face when he's, walking in the halls. Whenever I see him, I always stop to talk to him, and he just makes like your day better, like when you talk to him. So I think a lot of people can say that too, and it's just great to always like see him in school and talk to him. And he's like a good example of like a good human being and like how to act with people and like creating a positive culture in our school.
It's awesome. And he doesn't have an easy job either, because he's
No.
there to help support, people behaving the right way and doing the right thing. So that
Yeah.
speaks a lot. That says a lot about his character.
Yeah.
I'll shout out Mrs. Utz because in my 4 years, she has really helped me become more of a leader throughout my DECA experience and taking business classes. She's really helped me like go outside of my comfort zone and develop as a leader, and just kind of introduced me to the business field, which I'm probably going to go into in college. So she's really been an instrumental part of my high school career and really helps me become the person that I am today.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie.
I'll probably shout out Mr. Thompson, my chemistry teacher, just in the classroom. He made that class really easy for me, and he connected with me on a personal level too. He always wanted the best for me. Outside of the classroom, he always checked up on me, like how I was doing with sports and everything, and how I was doing my schoolwork. So like he just wanted the best for me in both academic and athletics, and I really appreciated that from him.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it.
I'll take this time to say thank you to my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Shosek. He taught me, he was a great teacher. He was funny when he needed to be, serious when he needed to be. He could lecture very well when he needed to, and he was just an all-around great teacher.
And it's one of those and that's great because Aiden, you had him what, 3 years ago?
I believe so, yeah.
But you don't forget somebody like that. Thank you. Who hasn't
I'll
gone
go
yet?
next. I'll shout out Mr. Taylor, my social studies teacher. He's always a positive person when people are down or not very engaged. He's never not on his toes. He always keeps us in line. He's just a very positive person.
And that's not easy either with a bunch of 8th graders, is it?
No, it is not.
No, it's awesome. Lewis, you didn't go yet, right?
No, I haven't. But I would like to shout out my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Warner. He kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone to try new things and meet new people.
Awesome. So I just want to thank everybody for coming on. I know the people that you mentioned deeply appreciate getting that shout out, because a lot of staff, they don't get those thank yous every day. A lot of what they do is just hard work, and you don't get recognized for it. So I know they appreciate it, and I know there's hundreds of them out there that are making a difference towards young adults like you. So we really appreciate that. I was definitely blown away by your ability to speak about what's important to you and the incredible things you're trying to accomplish. And I especially appreciated your focus on, just besides achievement, really focusing on relationships, dealing with adversity, and, just again, going back to that word empathy, making sure everybody understands one another and you treat people right. And we have an inclusive place where people belong. And I know that you're doing a great job with that. We got 3 of you going for different offices at the junior high. I'm really excited about that. And just appreciate that you're reaching for the stars and doing your best. So thank you so much for going on with me tonight, and I'm looking forward to watching you guys do great stuff throughout this year and after. So thanks everybody. Mr. Isaacs will take you off Zoom, and then unfortunately, the rest of the audience gets just me for a while if they want to stick around. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. As our young leaders go off and do their many great things, I just want to again thank them. What a great opportunity it was for me to talk to all of them. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about just how the year's been overall, how we're moving forward with the start of the year, and how we want to face some of those challenges that we're facing right now. So and again, I want to remind everybody, if you want to send the questions in, we're keeping track of those. And again, I'll answer as many as we can tonight, but mostly I'll get to many of them over the next couple of days on Facebook Live, try to answer those questions. A lot going on. So let's talk a little bit about the start of the school year. Of course, we're going to talk about the strengths and the positives first. Again, I've said this numerous times. We have over 4,300 kids and 700 adults. That's 5,000 people roughly in one campus. And we're doing it for the first time since March of 2020. And so just the fact that we're able to do that is a huge success and a tribute to the hundreds of people that are supporting our kids, to our kids themselves who are building those routines as the young people that we just talked about, and certainly your parents and the community around that. We're averaging, I'd say, 15 activities a day after school. Whether they're on campus or off campus, those are in-person activities. And so if you look at our campus now, again, I got here in March, I got here in February of 2020, and a month later, we went out with COVID. So I wasn't really able to appreciate this campus, not just the size of it, but the amount of activities going on that campus every day until really this fall. And so I've been amazed after school, seeing the campus and how busy it is, seeing the different experiences people are having, whether it's athletics, the marching band, performing arts, different clubs that are going on, just the community walking through the campus, running sometimes, exercising. So it's just phenomenal. So I think that's a huge positive and a tribute to us trying to get back to normal. Again, I said it earlier with the kids, we couldn't do this without our incredible staff. They're doing it the right way. They're trying to get to know the kids as much as possible, focus on their social, emotional well-being, building those relationships, and then doing whatever it takes in whatever position they have to try to support our kids and having a successful start to the school year. Our staff is dealing with some incredible challenges, which we're going to get to in a second. And they do so really without any fanfare, but they're doing things that you wouldn't believe. As I walk through those buildings every day and I see the hard work they're doing with our kids, or cleaning the buildings, or taking care of our nutrition and our food, or certainly transporting our kids back and forth, or cleaning the buildings, and keeping everybody safe in a variety of ways. I know Steve Zlavny was mentioned earlier, somebody who does that along with Officer Z. They're all doing incredible work and doing things because of COVID that they weren't expected to do. So I think that's a huge positive, and we wouldn't be where we are without that staff and those incredible people. A couple things that have been under the radar a little bit, but are really important for your kids and for the community of Victor Central School are: one, we've made real strong progress on really reimagining, I guess would be the word, of how we are going to focus on curriculum and teacher practice. We hired 2 new instructional leaders, Kristen Williamson and Karen Finter, who are overseeing English language arts, math, science, and social studies. They combine with some incredible other leadership staff, veteran leaders, and some that have been here for a year or two. And of course, the teacher leaders and our entire staff. And we're really making inroads and a push towards making sure your kids have put in front of them the research-based, high-level curriculum that's rigorous and tied to the standards and tied to the skills that they're going to need to do to whether they want to go into the military, the workforce, or college. And I hope to talk more about that because we're really trying to give our teachers what they need in terms of professional development. They're an incredible group, but like everybody, they need support and they need professional development that meets their needs. So I'm really happy with our instructional office and better ways to deliver that professional development, which ultimately improves the way we teach our kids. And that's what it's all about. And that's, you're not going to see that other than slowly as we work towards these research-based strategies and a better way to develop curriculum. I think you're going to start to see even better things being taught in the classroom, as well as continued emphasis using that great leadership of our staff to look for better and better ways to keep kids engaged in learning. They work really hard, our staff and our teachers specifically on that. And as you heard, the shout out for the different staff members. So we just want to keep using their greatness and expand on it and give them the tools they need. Also, I'm really, again, under the radar, but something that's going to be really important is we're moving through the development of our strategic plan. And I think that's something that's going to help guide our district for years to come. It's a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. I think according to the facilitators, we had close to 1,000 responses in our survey. By far the greatest number of responses from both the community and staff and they've done probably 20 different districts over the last 6 years. This is by far the greatest response, which makes me really proud as far as superintendent of Victor to know that community and the staff has invested that much. We've had numerous focus groups, and we're about to get a committee of 35 to about 35 people together to take all this information, synthesize it down into a rough draft of a strategic plan. This committee is going to work over 4 days to do so in October, November, and December. And then we're going to present that strategic plan to the board, have them review it, potentially make some revisions and make sure the community has a hold of it in January or February. And that's going to help lead us forward on what we really value at Victor Central School District and how we're going to hold ourselves accountable for reaching those goals. So I'm looking forward to that. So that whole focus on instruction, curriculum, as well as the strategic planning, those are under the radar. Those are, you can't really see every day. But we believe that that's going to really strengthen the framework of the district and move us forward in a really engaging and high level way. So those are some of the extremely positive things that are happening right now. In terms of challenges, well, obviously the biggest challenge is COVID, and as I said all the time in these types of town halls, a lot of it is you're dealing with at home that we don't even know about. It certainly hasn't gone away. As of this afternoon, and part of it is because I believe from talking to our health professionals, this Delta variant is A, extremely contagious, and B, children get it more so than the previous general strand that was out there since last year. How do we know this? Well, currently we have 28 cases, positive cases in our district, 24 students and 4 adults. And the building right now that is taking the brunt of it, as you know from my letter a couple days ago, is the primary building. So 17 of those 24 positive cases are right now in the primary building. Tomorrow we're going to have over 170 people quarantined because of COVID, and approximately 105 of them are from the primary school alone. So this is a real challenging situation that we're dealing with. It's certainly not the first one and won't be the last. But I know our primary building is facing it at the greatest level at this point. We have very, very few cases at the junior high or the high school, and a real small number of cases at this moment at the intermediate school and the early childhood school. Now, the early childhood school is unique because the kids are so young. If one child tests positive for COVID, then the entire class most likely would be quarantined at this time because of the age. They haven't done that with the health department has not done that with the primary school until we start to get multiple cases in a single classroom. And that's the key here, that we take direction from the Ontario County Health Department. They've been incredibly supportive. We do have multiple classrooms in the primary building at this time that have multiple cases, which is why in certain places they're quarantining entire classes. I'd say about 50% of our classes at the primary building do not have any quarantines or illness, which is good, but the other 50% are being touched either by quarantines or kids or students that are positive. I want to make sure everybody understands that our primary school will continue to remain open as long as for in-person instruction, as long as the health department believes it's safe to do so. And that's what we're doing. We're going off the health department's guidance on that. Much of that depends on the next few days and into next week and the week after. If we see a continued spread of the virus, and right now we're keeping an eye on whether it's being spread in the classrooms. We believe some of it has, although the majority of it has occurred outside. But if we see a continued spread of those cases, or we start to, really see significant quarantines to the point where we can't operate school, then we'd have to make some decisions around temporarily, and I mean that temporarily, going to virtual for the primary building. That is not the case, though, at this point. We are totally open. And we know that it's challenging right now for the large number of families that are quarantining their kids. So we're going to have to monitor the cases, and I'll be as transparent as possible with you as we move forward around how that primary building is doing and how the other buildings are doing. The staff, as I said, has been outstanding. They're doing whatever they can to maintain cleanliness and keep kids safe. I can't tell you all the different things they're doing to try to keep your kids safe and make sure we stay fully in person. And a lot of it just goes up without notice. So, and it's not just our teachers who are fantastic and our leadership staff, but certainly all the other staff members that do such important jobs in our district. So, we know how important in-person learning is. You heard the kids talk a few minutes ago about that importance. We know the negative effects of the hybrid model or the virtual model that occurred last year and the year before. So we're going to continue to follow those health protocols. And our main goal is to be safe and to stay open in person 5 days a week. And again, we're going to take that guidance from the health department, and we're going to be transparent with you around how things are going, what our numbers are. And I'm hopeful that we'll start to see a light at the end of the tunnel, especially in the primary building, where we start to go down in terms of cases. Which leads me to the next phase of the discussion, which is the new testing protocols mandated by the state of New York. There is a document. I guess I'll hold it up, but this is the commissioner's determination on COVID-19 testing pursuant to 10 NYCRR 2.62. It was sent out on September 2nd, 2021. And let me just be clear around and I've talked about this a few times in my communication with you, but let's revisit why we are required to at least attempt to test students and staff, and then I'll explain what that looks like. So effective immediately and for as long as this determination remains in effect, all P through 12 schools are hereby required to implement testing consistent with the following. And the first part of it is testing requirements for teachers and staff. P12 schools are required to ensure teachers and staff, as outlined above, have testing performed for COVID-19 at least once per week when a school is in a geographic area identified by the CDC as having low, moderate, substantial, or high transmission rates. Currently, Ontario County, as I checked about an hour ago, we have roughly 175 cases per 100,000 people over the last 7 days. 100 or above is considered a high transmission zone. So obviously, Ontario County remains in a high transmission rate. Therefore, teachers and staff need to be tested on a weekly basis. However, and this is very important, they may be permitted to opt out of mandatory weekly screening testing if they provide documentation of being fully vaccinated against COVID-19. So currently, we're asking our staff who have proof of vaccination to show that to their health offices so that they can exempt themselves from the weekly testing as per the mandate and rules from New York State. Those individuals that do not show proof of vaccination will need to be tested on a weekly basis. The other, and this is called pool testing, where we test large groups of people on a regular basis, or the county tests large groups of people on a regular basis to just make sure that we're catching people who are positive for the virus, hopefully early enough to contain it. The state also mandates screening testing for students However, this is incredibly important. Students, in order for schools to do that, they must obtain parent or guardian consent for minors. In this case, anybody in our school pre-K through 12th grade. Even if they are 18, we would need parent or guardian permission. They're required to offer screening testing to unvaccinated students on a weekly basis in geographic areas identified by the CDC as having moderate, substantial, or high transmission rates. And the last piece is what's called diagnostic testing. And we are required and must have the capacity to provide diagnostic testing for any students, teachers, or staff, regardless of vaccination status, and regardless of the level of transmission in the community, who are in school and are symptomatic or are asymptomatic but exposed to a positive case. So those are the three forms of testing that we're required to offer. No students will be tested without parent permission, and no staff will be tested if they show proof of vaccination status, unless, of course, the staff member is symptomatic or exposed to a positive case, and that staff member consents to testing. So let me explain that a little bit. This is all driven by the New York State government. It's also then which delivers grant money to the county. The county is providing us staff to carry out the testing. We are not paying for the testing or the staff to do it, although certainly our nurses will have a role in that. In terms of the pool testing, remember, that's for kids whose parents opt in to make sure to allow them to test, and it's for staff members who don't show proof of vaccination. In terms of the parents, that we would send you information most likely in the next week and how to sign on to the testing. You're going to have to opt into the testing. So we're going to start off with nobody being allowed to be tested in terms of our students. And in order for your child to be allowed to be tested, they would opt into this regular testing. It might be once a week. It might be once a month, depending on the numbers of students. From my understanding, for kindergartners through 8th grade, it's called a swab test. So it's going to be a swab of your cheek that the student will do him or herself. And if it's a high school 9th grade or above, it's going to be basically a spit test where you spit in a cup yourself, and then they take that and they test it. Both of these tests, whether it's a swab test or a spit test, will have results within 24 to 48 hours. It's a pretty quick process to be done, and then it's tested, and then we get the results in 24 to 48 hours. Certainly people would stay in school until those test results come back. Again, the goal of the state and the county around this, the health department, is to try to monitor our COVID rates as quickly as possible so that we can deal with them. But again, parents would need to opt their child into that. They would get an email that explains that and how to do it, and we'll have much more specific information to follow. Then there's the other piece that we're mandated to provide, which is diagnostic testing. So for example, if a child was symptomatic of at least one symptom of COVID, we would be able, and what would happen is that child's parents would get a call that day, and we would ask the parent if they would want their child to be tested in school for COVID. It's the parent's right to say no or yes. If they do consent to testing, then we'd send what's called a DocuSign link to you to sign off on allowing us to test your child. And then the child would be tested. This is what's called a shallow nasal test, where the child, him or herself, would put the testing device in the lower nostril, both nostrils. It's not the one that has to go way up in the nostril that caused such discomfort when the test first came out. But it is a nostril test. And then these results come back in about 15 minutes. So the child would sit and wait for 15 minutes. If it was a negative result, then the child, and it wasn't a symptom that would normally send a kid home, then that child would stay in school. Obviously, if it's a positive result, then we would send the child home. If the child's parents do not consent to testing, then we would be required to send your child home because of those symptoms. The other area where this comes into play is quarantining. I told you before that I think we had, tomorrow we're going to have about 175 people quarantined, over 100 in the primary building. In about 2 weeks, parents will be able to opt in their children to diagnostic testing. Again, that will be at a case-by-case basis. So if a child is exposed to another person who's positive, which means that they were about to be quarantined, then that child's parents will be called, explain that, and then you'll have the right to either have your child tested for COVID right there, or refuse to have testing, because that's your right. If your child's tested for COVID, same type of test as I just described, and the test is negative, remember the results come back in about 15 minutes. If the result is negative, then your child stays in school. They would be required to be tested on a daily basis during the time period that they, that we track that after somebody's exposed, but this is a way to keep your children in school as long as they test negative. If you refuse the test, then your child would be quarantined just like we are now, because we wouldn't have any information to be able to say that they're not positive. So, and this is all directly from our state. So this would be a way to, again, try to minimize some of the quarantines, but again, it's a parent's choice on whether they want their child tested or not. Yeah, obviously, if the child's exposed to somebody with symptoms or with positive COVID, and then they test positive, then they would go home. And again, there's two different ways. Remember, we talked about pool testing, which parents would opt in through a form and through a memo that we're going to send in about a week. And again, you have to opt in. If you don't fill out the form, then your child's not going to be tested randomly over the whether it's weekly or monthly. And then the other way we're going to get parent approval is for the diagnostic testing, and that will be phone calls, whatever that happens. We're going to do it each time, and we're going to do it by phone. And if the parent consents, then you'd fill out a DocuSign that would give us evidence that you said yes. Again, completely the parent's choice, and these are things that we have to do. All of this testing is going to be, again, covered through county grants. We will be using some of our personnel to help with that. But the good news around that is the county and the state are paying for it, not the school district. I'm also advocating, and we're going to look at hiring additional nursing staff to support some of the work that has to happen around quarantines. And because it's all the work and all the communication that has to happen, we're going to add some additional staff around that. That would be covered through our, not our general fund, but through the federal grant, the federal money, that federal stimulus money that we received for this year, that is supposed to be used towards COVID related expenses. So we want to make sure we have the proper staffing, not only to handle the testing, but to deal with some of the issues we're having right now. It's at the primary building, but certainly that could be a different building at some point. Just to give you information on these tests, from my understanding, they're called PCR tests, also called molecular testing, and it detects genetic material of the virus using a lab technique called polymerase chain reaction. What we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to send actually a question and answer document to the community the end of this week. We're going to send out some more information if we need to early next week, just around this. I'm going to take everything I just rambled for the last 15 minutes. We're going to put that in a coherent form of documentation so you can read it. You'll know exactly what you can do. We'll answer any further questions that you have around it. The most important point is it's a parent's decision on testing, whether it's diagnostic or pool testing. And the other important point around that is that it's driven by mandates from the state, which I read earlier. We have a variety of questions. I'm going to try to get to some of them now, and then I want to wrap up with another couple points. What about starting up daily screenings again? That's not been discussed. I get the feeling around that, but that isn't something that's been mandated by the state. That is pretty time consuming as well, but I certainly understand why people would wonder about that. if we give consent for testing, is it a blanket consent or can approve each time? So yeah, let me explain that. Remember, there's two kinds of testing. There's the what's called the pool testing, which would be a blanket consent. Certainly you could pull your kid out of it at any time. But if you consent when you fill out the form, we would assume that, you know, unless you pull out of that testing in the future, you give the consent to be tested. We would let you know certainly when your child's being tested and the result, but that would be a consent at the beginning. Diagnostic testing, if your child's symptomatic or exposed to somebody who's positive, that is a case-by-case basis, and it would be consent each time that happens. Because we would have to call you anyway, either to tell you your child's symptomatic or your child was exposed and the health department's about to quarantine them. So that would be a phone call. That would be a discussion on whether you want to have your child tested or not. If you choose not to, then you certainly don't have to. If you choose yes, you'd fill out that DocuSign. So that would be a case-by-case basis. Can't answer this one, I don't think, but I could try to at a later. How does that work test? How does that work test isn't always positive right away if exposed? Well, that's why we're going to do daily testing. That's why the health department has mandated daily testing for kids who are exposed. If your child is daily tested and comes back negative each day, they stay in school. At the time that a child is tested positive, they would need to go out based on the you know, the health department rules and guidance. Any clue why so many confirmed COVID-19 cases so fast? Great question. You know, we have hypotheses, you know, a lot of it's being transmitted outside the school just because of daily life. You see us, you see we're, you know, everybody is trying to be as normal as possible. We know that this particular variant does spread pretty quickly and does spread through kids, and kids seem to be more able to get that virus. We do have, you know, larger numbers of kids in buildings and adults in buildings in one spot. So that does increase the opportunity to spread the virus. Although I have to say, for example, our primary building is the one building, and we may have a couple, but at least the primary building, we're 6 feet or more spaced at lunch, which is exactly what the CDC recommended. And we're able to do that because of some work that they were able to do in terms of spacing for lunches. So there are other buildings, especially our older schools, or schools with older students, that don't have the space to be able to space our kids out that much at lunch, and it's not being spread over there. So, you know, we're doing the things that we need to, but a lot of this is, we believe, you know, just the fact of life that the variant is pretty high. I mean, we're in a high transmission zone in our county. They're in a significantly high transmission zone in Monroe County. And, you know, that's just a fact, but it's something that I know our health department is working closely on. It's one of the reasons we're able to stay open currently at the primary building, because, you know, we're keeping an eye on the spread, and most of the spread, we believe some of it has, but most of the spread has not occurred in school. If we start to see significant spread in school and people are getting sick, and certainly we don't have staff, that would change the things, which is why we have to monitor the situation in the next few days. Which child age groups will be considered for random testing and how frequently? Is this part of a study? I'm not aware that this is part of any study. I know, though, the results have to be reported to New York State. In terms of which age groups will be considered for random testing, it's really all the way from kindergarten up. So if you consent for your child to be randomly tested in kindergarten, for example, and only a small number of students have been approved by their parents for that, it's probably going to be weekly tested, or at least every couple of weeks. If you're in an age group where a large number of parents have opted their kids into testing, then we're probably not going to be able to get to all those kids on a weekly basis. And the random testing might be 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, or even once a month. Again, though, we will be notifying you when your child is tested. Certainly, if extenuated circumstances happen, you can opt your child out of that testing at any time. Are vaccinated kids going to be randomly tested as well with consent? So I go back to the guidance from the state, and it says offer screening testing for students to unvaccinated students on a weekly basis. Certainly, it would make sense, though, that some of our sorry about that, I hit the video screen, that some of our vaccinated parents or vaccinated students would want to be tested. And if we have the capability to do so, we will do that. But the mandate is specifically for unvaccinated students. How many full classes are being quarantined? I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. I think we have potentially three to four. I know there's 3 to 4 at the primary building at that point, and that's because we've had multiple kids and a staff member test positive in those classes. We also have 1 or 2 classes at the early childhood school quarantined, and that's because with that age group, the health department is quarantining all the classes because they're so young, and the mask wearing, for 4 and 5-year-olds and potentially 6-year-olds can be a little bit more challenging than our older kids. So the health department is determined to quarantine full classes. So it's somewhere around 4 to 5. Again, I don't want to guess. I don't believe we have any at the intermediate building at this time, certainly not at the secondary level. And so we're dealing with that, and hopefully that's going to contain this. Let's see. My question is, when there is something like a food allergy, strep, lice, etc., the parents are notified with a generic letter specific to the classroom. Why is this not the case when there is a quarantine of students in the classroom, regardless of if my child is affected? Please consider changing this policy. It's scary to hear these things third hand through the grapevine. Great point. Currently we've been notifying the individuals that need to be, that have been exposed to the level where they would potentially need to be quarantined by the health department, and certainly notifying the people who are positive. We haven't notified necessarily the entire class, but certainly if we get more than 1 case in a classroom, then that would lead to more specific notifications. But I do hear your point. We're definitely looking at that type of communication. We just have to be careful in terms of HIPAA regulations, but you are correct. When other situations have happened around health and wellness, they've notified entire classes. So that's something we'll consider. It's 7:33. So there's many other questions. I really appreciate that. I'm definitely going to take a look at them. We'll take a look at them over the next 2 days and answer them to the best of our ability. Again, the most important thing we can do to stay safe is stay home if you're feeling symptomatic or have any illness. Stay home, be safe, and we appreciate your patience as we work through some of these challenging experiences. Don't forget those kids that were on the first half an hour and the great experiences they talked about. That's why we're doing this. It's about the kids, and really appreciate your support and communication and transparency. Have a great night, and take care.